root lodging, and strip till. Does root narrowness or width even matter at all? Those are a few of the topics that were discussed on my favorite agronomic program, and that's called Ask the Agronomist. We've talked about him before on the show. It's put together by the good folks from DEKALB, Asgrow, Western Illinois. The show features Lance Tarachione from Bayer discussing agronomic issues. Now, my favorite thing about Ask the Agronomist is that Lance doesn't go on YouTube and start just promoting Bayer products, Bayer solutions, DEKALB Asgrow seed. He actually focuses on agronomic recommendations from his more than 30 years as an agronomist. In the season finale of Ask the Agronomist for 2025, Lance had Dr. Fred Below from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign on the show. Fred's been on, I think, the last 4 years, Lance says, on the season finale every year of Ask the Agronomist. Let's get right into a few of the recommendations and topics that Lance and Fred discussed on this latest edition. In this first clip, Dr. Below and Lance were talking about corn hybrids, root mass, and root structure. What's the difference really between narrow and deep versus wide and a little bit more shallow? Here's what Fred and Lance had to say.
And so what we discover, Lance, is roots can differ in their surface area. The angle really affects the depth, and they can differ in their mass. And guess what? Those three traits are not related. They're actually independent. And I don't think I have to tell you, but you would be shocked at variation in root architecture that exists among commercial hybrids. Apparently, they're selected for yield and stability, and not their root architecture.
Right. If they don't fall over, that's good enough for us.
Yeah, but I don't have to tell you that the best hybrids root lodge. And I think that's because, by the way, you pay for roots and yield. And so, it sort of makes sense to us that if we have a so-called offensive or racehorse hybrid, it tends to be the smaller rooted variety that has a tendency to root lodge, and the defensive one is it's got a lot of surface area, a lot of wide roots and mass, and it does well everywhere. So I'm really excited about that work because I think we might be able to help position hybrids for, certainly certain geographic regions, soil types, and even better yet, hopefully to management.
I've always felt that since we got the board here,
let's use the board.
I'll draw a picture. So since we're talking about roots, so your angle would be kind of the angle that they're coming out of the crown.
Yep, correct.
Versus over here.
Yep, narrow or wide.
Yeah, yep. Right. So this would represent a wide out here. This would represent a narrow.
You got it, man. Good artist.
Regardless of root mass, size, and depth, I kind of think angle relates to lodging resistance, because to me it makes sense that standing like this, I'm less likely to fall over than if I'm standing like this. I don't know if that's right or not. I mean, the mass is going to be important too, but to me, these vertical ones that maybe go deeper,
help anchor the plant is what you're saying.
Well, I actually think these do, because to me, if you put guy wires on a tower, they don't go down right next to it; they go out away from it, and so to me, these horizontal ones are less likely to lodge than the vertical ones, but I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, I'm not sure we've had enough data to actually ascertain that yet, Lance. I do know that angle is probably the most heritable of the traits, very consistent, and I can tell you that if conditions get dry or if you have low fertility, those narrow angle ones tend to be a little better. Okay. So obviously we need to look at
because they're going deeper.
Going deeper, yeah, especially where the water is. Right. And I think some of the nutrients like nitrogen chase the water.
Right.
So I'm hoping that we're going to be able to tell you these hybrids would be more responsive to a in-season side dress based on where the root is. They'd be more tolerant to a higher plant density, or they might have be more responsive to narrow row spacing.
Then Lance asked Dr. Below, if you're side dressing, In season with a narrow-rooted hybrid, do you need to keep the nitrogen closer to the row? Here's what Fred said.
Yeah, well, you do. I mean, what we've actually seen is the ones that have a wide angle do better with the side dress, even a wide drop, because they can access or acquire that side dress.
Is that
nutrient
because
quicker.
those roots are a little closer to the surface?
Yeah,
or
probably
or
closer
what?
to the surface, and I think they they spread out over a wider area, and it's easier for them to acquire the nitrogen
Right,
that is side dressed.
Dr. Belo says that when he goes to events, people always ask him, what's the next big thing? What's the hottest topic? Well, there's a lot of research being done in micronutrients, boron, sulfur, and of course, in biological products.
We continue to look at fertility. When it comes to micronutrients, boron's a big player. Well, when we talked about pollination issues, I think some of that's related to boron, especially foliar applied boron. We're looking at ways to try to get that boron to be more mobile in the plant. That's the key. We continue to look at sulfur. And I don't have to tell you, sulfur is sort of the missing link when it comes to nutrients. And then we have a lot of studies looking at this, the wild west of biologicals.
Right.
I mean, we use the term biological. I actually like to think of biological as a living organism, bacteria or fungi. And then I call biostimulant the non-living, the compounds.
Okay.
And that's a challenge, Lance, because there's so many products on the market, so many ways to do them. Claims that probably outstrip the actual science. But being optimistic, we're convinced that there is a role for biologicals. They're going to fit into three major roles: stress relief, nutrient availability, or the management of residue. And so a lot of our work is focusing on these areas as well.
It's probably the stress relief area that's been the hardest for me to believe is real. What is the physiology behind that being possible?
Yeah, that's the one that's the hardest to see a positive response from, because of course you have to be proactive, allegedly, before the stress occurs. I think a lot of these ones that induce or are marketed to induce stress relief, they either contain amino acids or they're alginate extracts, and I think the idea is that they can upregulate processes that involved in osmoregulation. So if I could get a jump start on osmotic adjustment, osmotic adjustment is one of the ways that plants tolerate drought, or I could do that process just a little bit better, then I might be able to tolerate dry conditions.
So does that osmotic adjustment benefit the plant as far as water utilization or getting nutrients in spite of being lacking in water?
Yeah, no. Well, I think it's more tolerating the drought, waiting for the rain.
Okay.
It's sort of like treading water. When I osmotically adjust, what I do is I accumulate solutes, and I can lower the water potential in the cells, so that I maintain a higher tissue water potential. So it's not that it's not that it going to yield higher. It's just that it's going to let the plant better tolerate those dry conditions,
and maybe enable it to be more able to take advantage of moisture when it comes.
When it comes, yeah. Like all of these
If
things.
it never comes, not going to help.
It's not going to help. It's sort of what's the strategy we're going to take, right? Why we hope the next rainstorm comes.
In addition to thinking about drought and moisture, Dr. Belo says that he's also interested in the topic of residue in the field. That led to a robust discussion between Fred and Lance about residue.
Now one of the biological areas that I think actually holds the most promise, and these are the residue degraders, residue degraders, stubble busters, whatever you want to call it, residue. Some people call residue trash,
Right.
Or litter.
It causes problems.
When it clogs up the planter, it's trash, no doubt about it.
Or when it ties up my nitrogen, or when it hits my soil.
But I like to think of residue as sort of nature's biological, because there's a lot of nutrition in that residue,
Right.
and if you could only access that nutrition Why wouldn't I'd like to buy my fertilizer once and use it twice? And I think this is an area where the residue degraders come in. Lance, we're awash in residue if you think about it. Think about conservation tillage or no-till. It's all about residue, a lot of residue. Think about cover crops. Geez, the problem is they have residue that doesn't release the nutrients fast enough. Right now we're double cropping. We can double crop soybean. We can double crop soybean after wheat. That's thanks to climate change. Even in central Illinois, we're doing that. Of course, the problem is the wheat straw. Here's the biggest thing, Lance, as all growers increase yield, they have more residue.
And that's a fairly constant equation, right?
That's math, Lance. That has to do with something called the harvest index. So I can tell you that for every additional bushel we produce, there's 44 pounds more of dry residue. And as yields go up, guess what? More residue to manage. I mean, one way you could do is till it, but there's some disadvantages to that as well.
Yeah. So if you think about 200 bushel corn versus 300 bushel corn, which the 300 is kind of the new 200 to me.
Yeah,
it used to be 200 used to be you were proud of that. Now that's a complet in my line.
That's a crop failure, Lance.
And 300 is what we're going for. Well, that's 100 bushel at 44 pounds a bushel. That's over 2 ton more residue.
That's 7 tons of residue, where the 200 was a little under 5 tons of residue.
One of the great features of the Ask the Agronomist series is that folks who are watching on the live stream can ask questions in real time and get the answers in real time. A viewer named Patrick asked a question. He wondered if wider roots would be better for side dress applications. Here's what Dr. Bilo and Lance had to say, and that got Lance on the topic of root lodging and strip till.
Okay, so the question.
All right, so I need you to translate the RCB.
They're root zone banding, so they're putting on anhydrous with dry fertilizer in a strip.
On the surface or in a strip till?
Below ground.
Okay.
Which you guys are set up to do that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Patrick, I think it makes a lot of sense to me that's going to be the scenario where you could have a smaller surface area, a narrow angle, and then a small mass. Right? Why you don't need to invest a lot of energy into growing that root system if you're concentrating the nutrients around it, and so that's what I think would be it. I mean that's going to be a hybrid that I actually call a more of an offensive or racehorse type. And now if you had a wide angle and a big mass and a big surface area and you abandoned that nutrition, I don't think you're going to see as much of an advantage.
So I'm gonna draw another picture here.
Okay, artist Lance here.
I got a question for you because here's
thanks for that question, Patrick.
Here's where the agronomist may disagree with the physiologist for reasons of lodging.
Okay.
So here's our strip area of disturbance. You got your corn plant growing here. You've got nutrients placed down here ish. And this is the easiest place for roots to grow here in this really mellow
and that's
strip.
where they will proliferate too.
And they're headed for this fertilizer that's here. I kind of wonder if that keeps them a little narrower because they've got this really nice place to grow roots. The reason I think this is, and this was a big deal this year, I continue to see more root lodging in strip till than I do in full width tillage or no till. And I think I love the mellowness of the strip. I think strip till is the best way to grow corn, and it frustrates me that it's causing root lodging, but it's just so mellow here, especially this year. I mean, you could stick your arm into that strip up to about here, and there's no compaction there, which is great for roots and great for the plant. But sometimes I think if you've got this little compaction layer here, once the roots get through it, it gives them something to anchor to. And in this, they don't have that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that at all, Lance. When I mention this architecture, I'm talking about the best way to access those nutrients and the highest yield. And and
a smaller rooted hybrid can take more advantage of the concentration of the band and maybe yield more because it's wasting less energy growing roots.
I mean, roots aren't free. We pay for roots and yield. I think all of your breeders will tell you, oh boy, we can develop a hybrid that doesn't ever root lodge, but of course it doesn't yield either, because it's that trade-off. So yes, lodging is an issue. I'm answering the question regarding to what the top end yield would be.
A lot of talk about roots. If you're a Gen X or a millennial, you probably remember what Lincoln Park said about corn root systems. They dig so deep and get so far, but in the end, does it really even matter? Lance had an answer to that.
If we could characterize products better, and we could do a better job of launching products that have consistency and performance over years, a lot of the good ones hang around for 5 or 6 years. And then we have a lot of one-year wonders that lower the average lifespan of a hybrid to, statistically, it's like 1.6 years, I believe, Fred.
Yeah, not very long.
Is the lifespan of a commercial corn hybrid. But the good ones hang around. And so I think on the ones that hang around, I think we probably could. On the ones that don't hang around, you're right, Adam. By the time they know from their testing, or even if the seed industry would adopt what you guys are doing, and there are a few brands that are, you're meeting with one here later today. You told me that has kind of carved out this root space as where they think they know things that the rest of us don't. So some people have always maintained that it really doesn't matter. It's all about yield and standability, and as long as the plant's still standing and it yields well, we don't really care about the roots. But the work that Sam and you and others have done have kind of shined a light on the fact that, well, maybe we do need to care. And the seed industry can adapt to, we can characterize whatever we want to about a hybrid. You just got to have a lot of want to dig into roots, because it's a lot of work.
It is. Well, Adam, let me chime in on that. I don't see, if we can show a relatively high throughput way to characterize roots, and we can show its value, that's the point of research, right? You try and show that value. I don't see why companies couldn't do a little minor root digging before they release a hybrid. Yeah. And then, I know when I look at the catalog, it's got a root score. And why couldn't that score be more encompassing? At least that's sort of my fairy tale hope.
Because the only, historically in the seed industry, the only thing that root score has measured was lodging.
Agreed.
There's nothing about mass, nothing about size, nothing about depth, nothing about anything in that other than did the plant fall over or not.
Yeah, and what if you dug a lot of roots and Adam, I don't dig that many. I'm above the age limit where I'm legally allowed to dig roots, but I'm allowed to look at them after they come out of the ground. The root system is not as extensive as many people think. I mean, very few roots have more than an 8-inch horizontal spread. So this idea that roots cross the row, that's a myth. I mean, that maybe happened 50 years ago, but almost no roots in what I see cross the row.
Okay, we're going to have to wrap it up there. Again, that was Ask the Agronomist. That series is put together by the folks from Asgrow DEKALB, more specifically, DEKALB Asgrow, Western Illinois. You can find them on YouTube. The series is produced by Heather, and you can also find the DEKALB Asgrow folks on Facebook as well. When we come back, cover crops. You're listening to The Farm Show on Westplex Talk 104.5.